Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today we're going to be looking at the 5 must-watch games of the 2024 United Football League season. The schedule just came out a few days ago, and now it's been a couple days. We can look at these games and say which are the ones that you must see. What are the best games on this schedule? And we're going to be looking at just 5 of them. This is not a top 5, these are not in any particular order. These are just 5 games that if you're only going to watch 5 games of the 2024 UFL season, these are the ones you got to watch. Now, real quick before we get into the actual video, we are almost at 500 subscribers, and as I've talked about before, I am doing a Q&A at 500 subscribers. So if you have any questions about YouTube, about other YouTubers, Spring Football, United Football League, anything like that, leave them down below in the comments, and naturally once I do the Q&A, I'll use some of those questions in that video. Now, without further ado, let's get started with the first game, and it's the obvious one. It's, of course, going to be the Renegades versus Stallions at Arlington in Week 1. Look, it's the champion versus champion matchup. This is the opening game to start the season. It's a massive deal. And the one that people aren't really talking about, now naturally determines if he re-signs to come back, but this legitimately could also be the grudge match, rematch between Luis Perez against J'Mar Smith. Now, for those of you who don't know, back in 2022 when the USFL came back, its first game was the Stallions versus Generals at Birmingham, which is widely regarded as the best spring football game in the modern era. And that was a game between J'Mar Smith and Luis Perez. And we could see that rematch between these two quarterbacks, which would be insane to see. They have not played against each other since that Week 1 game. And so it would be really cool to see them go against each other again. And now they're both champions. This is a massive deal as no matter what reasons a team wins or loses, no matter what the additions or subtractions were during the offseason, whichever team wins, oh man, those leagues' fan bases are going to go crazy. So this is a must-watch game for obvious reasons. Now let's go to some of the other ones which aren't naturally this obvious. Now the second game to look at is going to be the Week 2 game between the Arlington Renegades and the St. Louis Battlehawks. This game is at St. Louis and it's prime time. 8 p.m. Saturday, April 6th. This is a big one. Look, the Battlehawks fan base is the biggest in spring football. The fact is they actually are able to pull 30,000 plus fans in every game. And, yeah, they're mad at the Renegades. For those of you who don't know, the Battlehawks actually finished with the 4th best record this past season in the UFL. They ended up finishing 7-3, which is actually tied with 2 other teams. But because they were in a division that also had a team that went 9-1 and tiebreakers, they ended up actually missing the playoffs at 7-3. And a 4-6 Renegades team made the playoffs instead. Now, the Renegades did go on to win the championship, but a lot of Battlehawks fans are naturally still very upset about it and naturally think that they should have won the championships instead of the Renegades. I mean, hey, they were 7-3, the Renegades were only 4-6. So this is a big deal. Not only is it the XFL champion coming back to St. Louis, a massive place, it's because of the fact that the Renegades are the team that Battlehawks fans view as the reason that they didn't make the dance. Now, as I talked about before, don't tell them it's actually because the Battlehawks blew their Week 9 game against the Dragons, but this is a big deal. Battlehawks fans are mad at the Renegades, and this is going to be an insane game. I would not be shocked if the stadium has over 35,000 in attendance. This is a big one. Now, the next game to look at is going to be the Week 4 matchup between the DC Defenders at Birmingham Stallions. Look, aside from the championship game, pretty much throughout the entire year, the only 2 teams people were talking about as elite in spring football were the Defenders and the Stallions. The Defenders went 9-1, but did lose the championship game, whereas the Stallions went 8-2 and won the USFL championship for the 2nd straight year. But on paper, these 2 teams are still pretty much the 2 best teams in spring football. They've got 2 of the best coaches in spring football, with Skip Holtz being unarguably the number 1 and Reggie Barlow being bare minimum the 3rd best coach in spring football. So when you look at this is a really intriguing matchup. The Defenders do have a new quarterback group, considering the fact that it's very obvious that both D'Eriq King and Jordan Ta'amu are not returning. But overall, their team is still incredible, and these are the top 2 teams, at least for most of the year last year in the Defenders' case, going against each other at Birmingham in a mid-season matchup that is going to be really fun to watch. This legitimately could be the best overall game we see in the season, just because these 2 teams know that each other are pretty much considered the elite of their league. So this is going to be a really intriguing matchup. This is definitely going to be a really good one. The 2 best teams this past season in terms of record-wise, and pending how you view the championship, just the 2 best. Now, the 4th game to look at is going to be the Roughnecks versus Stallions in Week 8. Now, this is one of those that XFL fans might be scratching their head about. To put it simply, this is this is the rivalry. When you look at these two teams, it's pretty hard to say any other teams that have as big a rivalry as these ones because of one thing. The Birmingham Stallions record against every single USFL team minus the Gamblers, who are now the Roughnecks, including the postseason, is 19-1. They lost to the Breakers this past season, early in the season. Aside from that, they have never lost, except to the Gamblers, who they are 2-2 against. That's right. In both Season 1 and Season 2 of the new USFL, the Gamblers split the record against the Stallions, which included the historic Week 9 upset over the Stallions to end the Stallions' undefeated dreams in 2022. Despite the fact the Gamblers have never finished making the playoffs, they've been 500 against the Stallions. And this is their last matchup this upcoming season in Week 8. This game could very well determine the playoff fates of either team, pending how the Stallions are able to continue defending their crown or how the Roughneck season goes. But this could be a case where the Stallions are either having a bit of a faulty year or they're undefeated again, and then the Roughnecks come into Birmingham and do what they did in 2022 and beat them when nobody expects it. This is a huge rivalry, and I think it is currently the biggest rivalry in the league, considering the fact that teams like the Dragons, Maulers, and Breakers are no longer in the league for some of those rivalries we had. This is going to be a massive game, and I think people are probably going to underrate this one and how important it is and how big a game it truly is. But then the last game to look at is the Week 10 matchup between the Renegades at DC Defenders. Now, this is not the first championship game rematch between these two teams for the XFL title, but it's Week 10. You're talking about the last game of the regular season is a championship game rematch of the XFL championship game at DC. Once you get past St. Louis, DC is the overall just biggest fan base and the second best home field advantage in the entire league. And having this at DC against the champions that beat you for the championship and has a very high likelihood of actually affecting the playoffs for either one or both these teams, yeah, this is a big deal. This is a massive game. Of all the Week 10 games, at least from looking on it as of right now, this is by far the biggest one. Because again, these are the XFL championship game rematch in a Week 10 matchup that very well could be a winner gets in and loser gets out of the playoffs. This could be a lot of things. This is a massive game. Easily deserves to be in this 5 must-see games for the 2024 UFL season. So that'll do it for the list. There's a few other games that naturally are pretty big. The Battlehawks versus Stallions first game against each other. The XFL championship game rematch the first time around. But in terms of the 5 must-see games, these are those ones. These are must-watch games that you have to go see once they're on for many different reasons. Now, as I said earlier before, make sure to leave questions down below for my 500 subscriber Q&A. And if you're not already subscribed, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. We still have another schedule video coming out probably later this week where I'm going to be ranking all 8 teams' schedules from easiest to hardest. We are nearly at 500 subscribers, and naturally we have the giveaway at 1,000 subscribers. And as always, have a great night.